Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's going to go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. It is Tuesday. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers along with me as always. How are you, Kevin?
Good morning. I love that open, man. It's just so much fun listening to all those play-by-play guys. You know,
That's right. Get you going.
Another one. You see Victor Oladipo's coming back. Victor Oladipo's coming back from Miami, apparently. So good to see him. It's a long road back for him, you know, and obviously things didn't go well at the end with the Pacers, but former IU guy, and we'll see if he can get his NBA career back on track.
Absolutely. But welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat. Brought to you by Endeavor Hospitality of Bloomington. That's the fine folks at Southern Stone Restaurant. Feast Market and Cellar. Great wines and cheeses. Cabello Restaurant. The Courtroom down in Bedford. BB's Marketplace, the former Wagon Wheel, which has incredible steaks. And you can order those, by the way. And you can get all of this. Go to either your what is it? Apple. I don't have Apple, but your whatever app store you have, and get My Wow Club. Just download that. It costs you nothing, and makes us look good.
Yeah.
But you accumulate benefits and get free stuff. But hey, Indiana. Speaking of free stuff, they get a free chance to earn their way into the NCAA tournament this week. Tough way to go. They'll have to face Michigan on Thursday. And then your reward for that is playing Illinois the day after. Do you think they have to win both of those games to get into the NCAA tournament?
Yes, I do. And I also think that Wisconsin did too many favors by losing to Nebraska, because I think getting Wisconsin the third time would have been the better matchup than facing Illinois and Big Kofi, when you consider that Illinois came in here and pound them. Yeah, I mean, you take a look at Indiana's two worst losses in the Big Ten, right? It's Michigan and Illinois. So it's not necessarily a draw that inspires a lot of confidence. But that being said, you got to go out and do it. I mean, you've lost your last two games by a total of 3 points. You play Purdue to the wire. You play Rutgers to the wire. They're both top 4 seeds in the tournament. You know, the way the schedule, cracked out at the end of the year. The Rutgers game, again, another one that you want to, you wish you had back, obviously last week. You take a look at the Rutgers game, you take a look at, the first Wisconsin game, and so many games, the margin for this team. But you could probably say that about the whole Big Ten, in terms of how many games went down to the wire this season, a very competitive league. And, Mike Woodson said on a show last night, right, that the league has proven that anyone can beat anyone. So you go out there, you give it your best shot. You got to stop Hunter Dickinson. First, I think that's the key to everything. Even if he steps out, you got to be there. You can't let him shoot open threes because he's proven he can hit.
Michigan won without Hunter Dickinson the other day.
Yeah, against Ohio State, and their backs were against the wall. Another interesting storyline. This will be the first game back for Juwan Howard. So will the team be fired up for that? Phil Martelli got him 3-2 during that stretch, and Michigan, like Indiana, this is another kind of playing game, a bubble game for both teams, like Rutgers was. So I think you're going to see a lot of desperation on both sides in terms of how they play. Mike Woodson last night on his show talked about shortening his bench, which, I think he should have done all along. I think it's been a big mistake throughout the course of the Big Ten season that he's gone with the second unit at times as long as he has, because I think it's killed momentum. We've seen that. We saw that in the Iowa game, going all the way back to that. We saw that in the first Wisconsin game too. I just think that certain guys weren't ready for the Big Ten. And I think this is a game where you're going to have to ride your main guys for as long as you can. And it doesn't sound like Trey Galloway will be back either, which, he did go through warmups, I think, in the Purdue game, but he didn't sound too optimistic on the show last night about Trey coming back.
Hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Dwayne, says good morning. Mike,
Morning.
it's Taco Tuesday. Now, if I could afford the gas to get the tacos, he can't afford either. I get you. The gas prices are going up, man. Michael's on here. Ross, 5 less. How you doing? Jason asked, with Juwan being back, does that help or hurt them? Kind of what you were just talking about. I don't know. I think Phil Martelli is a very comforting coach. He's talked about this yesterday. He was a D1 coach for 1,000 years, man. He's got a ton of wins. He has seen it all, and so I think that he was a calming influence probably on that sideline. Obviously, I wouldn't call Juwan Howard a calming influence. He's the least of that. He's kind of opposite of that. So I don't know. I don't know that does to have the calming influence help them. They were able to win without Hunter Dickinson against Ohio State. That says a lot to me.
Yeah, and let's not forget too, Caleb Houston, the freshman, really burned Indiana in that first meeting too. And you take a look at 11 of 17 from free. They just had one of those days where they were hitting all their shots and built that early lead and didn't let up. And Diabate inside the freshman. And when you get to March and those freshmen play a lot and they develop, they tend to flourish this time of year. They start to figure it out. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see, how well they perform in the tournament stage as well. It's going to be, Indiana, hopefully like last year, hopefully they'll have a lot of fans out, and maybe that'll help. And I was at the women's tournament over the weekend, and I could tell you that the fan turnout for the women really helped spur them on, going all the way, making that run to the finals. So, and hats off to Terry Moore and her crew, by the way, for probably locking up a top 4 seed and hosting for the women's tournament this weekend.
Speaking of which, hosting. So, all right, yesterday I just took out a piece of paper and drew a calendar. I need y'all to break. I'll go grab it, but literally just drew a calendar of March and circled the days of which the 3 tournaments are happening. Both the NCAAs and the NIT for the men's side, trying to figure out who could be where and the overlap of hosting. The first, second rounds of the NIT, they have no conflict. It's a Monday, Tuesday, I think. Then from there on, you start to have some conflict. And I don't know if Indiana women host the NCAA, which it looks pretty good that they will, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
That would interfere possibly with the men's second round in NIT stuff. So
yes. They would probably have to go on the road as a higher seed, I would think, if that were to happen. That's apparently the word. And you don't know, maybe a team like Xavier or Cincinnati, you might see them. What's funny? I don't know if you saw last night, but in the Horizon League, Cleveland State lost, and they were the regular season conference champions. So it would be really funny if, say, Indiana slipped in the NIT. You could have a 1-8 Indiana Cleveland State matchup, a rematch of that 1986 tournament upset.
Nobody wants to see that. That would be too scary. What else was I just looking at? Daggone it. Oh, well, something else I want to talk about. Hoosiers for Good. They're having an announcement today. It's a new Indiana nonprofit dedicated to help strengthen. This is from their press release. A new Indiana nonprofit dedicated to helping strengthen, promote, and support Indiana charitable causes by using the names, images, likenesses, time, talents, NIL, of Indiana University student athletes. This is directly pointed at IU student athletes. Basically, this is creating a pool, an NIL pool. You've got all these different NIL groups out there that are trying to get attention and doing that. Indiana has no control over that.
Yeah.
That's a problem, because that's where you get people that are handing out cash that are not affiliated with the university, which sometimes maybe the university likes that because their hands are clean. But at the same time, now that you have this NIL thing that legalizes buying players. Let's just be honest about it. I would think that you'd want to have some control to know what's going on, and that's what this is. And it is the speakers. Now, I don't know if this is board members for this, but the speakers include Pete Youngman. He is an HFG board chair. He's the president of Cook Medical and Cook Group, which obviously a very intelligent person. There's someone you would want on there. Joe Hogsett, Indianapolis mayor. Why the hell mayor? What the hell does he? First of all, what the hell does he know about NIL? Secondly, what freaking time does he have to spend on NIL deals for IU athletes? But maybe he's just speaking today, and so these are just speakers. So there's somebody from Raleigh Children's Hospital, someone, the Turnstone Chief of Development, whatever that is. But Fred Glass, the former Indiana University athletic director and Taft partner. That's the one that scares me about having anything to do with Indiana's NIL situation. He certainly knows about spending money because he spent a decade of just doling out millions of dollars. But there's that. There's so now you have Hoosiers for Good. That is going to be Indiana's official NIL link, in my opinion.
Yeah, you talk to a lot of these athletes, and over the years, and a lot of them have been involved with Riley's Children's Hospital. I remember Harry Kreider with the diabetes, and that was very passionate to his heart because he was a type 1 diabetic. And I think that when you look at that, it would be a good revenue stream in terms of maybe give them money for speaking appearances and so forth. You would for good natured, you'd like for it to be a volunteer thing, right? But especially for certain causes. But and nonprofits are nonprofits for a reason. I don't think you would necessarily be rolling in the bank with this stuff. But it sounds like at least an avenue.
Don't kid yourself.
Yeah. Well, I remember that 60 Minutes expose about the YMCA and the board members and how they stayed in 5-star hotels and stuff and everything like that. There is money to go around, but who knows how much, and for student athletes and so forth. And
I'm not saying it's a bad thing for Indiana to do. This is keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
This is exactly you want this basketball. If you want that basketball program back up to where you want it to always be, you have to have this in place.
Yeah. I don't think you have to have just this. I think you need more than that. Of
course, but absolutely. But this has to be a part of it now. It's like it's just one of those things that has to be there. And Indiana's kind of getting out in front of that on the basketball side. On the football side, personally, I think they're screwed. I don't think that they have a chance in hell of keeping up with Michigan's and Ohio State and Penn State and those SEC schools. They're so far ahead. And this, it's not even close. It's going to create in football. I think it's going to create even more of the haves and the have-nots.
The disparity, yeah, no question, yeah. But you take a look at some of these Group of 5 programs. Like, how does Cincinnati do it every year? How do some other programs do it? And they get 3 and 2 stars, and they manage to find a way. There's still always a way to do it, even if you're not getting the top 50 talent. I mean, it's a lot harder, but there's a way to do it. And even a few years ago, Tom Allen did it. And he's got the 19th ranked recruiting class coming in this year, so he's getting some players, irregardless of it. But it'll be interesting to see the impact 5-10 years down the road and Indiana's ability to maybe keep up with some of those blue blood programs in football.
Hey, we got to take a break. Coming up next, Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox and BTN to join us. Of course, don't forget, go to your app store And sign up for the WOW Club. WOW Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile phone. The WOW Club is comprised of a variety of the restaurants I've spoken of, like Southern Stone and Feast, Cabello, and there's more coming. And there's more on there. There's an entire list of those. The WOW Club is the only mobile dining app you'll need when choosing a place to dine in or around Bloomington. So go to the WOW Network and sign up now. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington.
Did you ever talk with him, by the way, about does he want it to be Endeavor Hospitality or is he going to change it?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I think you need to endeavor that, Jim.
Endeavor to persevere. I will endeavor to persevere.
You're doing your Howard Schnellberger voice, man.
Yeah, see, it sounded like something he'd done before.
The University of Louisville is on a collision course for the national championship. The only variable is time. You got to have the pipe. Well, Beverly was down there. She saw there was, 350 people out there. There was a blogger and a high school notebook writer. There's even one podcaster out there. You've got probably 360 people out there waiting on you all to come out and perform. That only works for Kevin. Oh, my God. What was that, the Miami first year or something?
At FAU, yeah. We got 350 people in that, including bloggers.
Did you say it was the FAU? That was Miami's first year. That was terrible.
They were pretty bad, too, but no, that was when he was at Florida Atlantic.
Oh,
back in 09, yeah.
Was that a real quote that you got to hear?
No, it was that was from it was like a parody. It was like a radio bit that they did.
Someone did it. Oh my God.
A guy did like a
hilarious.
fake Howard Schnellenberger voice and stuff. And he was like mimicking the Michael Irvin This Moment speech, and he's like, when you've got 350 people in that, including bloggers, including vendors.
Oh shit.
John knows Conference USA football. It's kind of like, especially down there. I mean, Western Kentucky, they fill up their stadium, but
yeah, it's kind of like Western Kentucky Stadium is like old school Memorial Stadium, except a little smaller.
Yeah. Bailey Zeppi was at the combine. I talked to him.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
A lot of people are high on him, believe it or not.
Yeah, I asked him about the offense and everything, and how much fun it was, and throwing the ball 680 times.
All right, I'm sure Mike will join us mid-segment, so here we go.
Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat here. Brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. If you're looking for a deal, they've got the best. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Looking at the projected field of 68 from the Sporting News, Mike DeCourcy. His number one seeds, of course, Gonzaga, Arizona, Auburn, and Baylor. I don't know that is that is probably potential to change with some conference tournaments. You think on some of these, Gonzaga is not going to get hurt. I'm assuming since they're number one. So at Auburn, I could see if they lost to Kentucky or something in the SEC, they would swap spots. Baylor and Kansas possibly could swap. Baylor could definitely swap spots with Kansas. And then Wisconsin's the highest seeded. Golly, and Wisconsin's a freaking 2 seed.
Yeah,
they are the weakest 2 seed in the damn tournament, in my opinion.
But they get it done in the close games. You know, that's the thing. They're pretty resilient. What do they have Purdue? They have them as a 3.
Let's see. Villanova, Purdue. Yeah, they are the 2nd, 3rd, 3 seed.
Yeah.
Then you got Providence in there with Al Durham.
Yeah, the Friars.
They have 24-4. What a great season they've had. 4 seeds for like Texas Tech, UCLA, the Illini, who Indiana will play if they are able to get by Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. Houston, UConn, Iowa is a 5 seed, 22-9. You know, Indiana was so close to having that season right there. It's ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. So if they have that, we're talking a few games between being a 5 seed and not even being in the damn tournament. I mean, it's that close. And they have no one to blame but themselves, of course. There's LSU. Ohio State.
You said you had no doubt that they were going to be a top 4 team in the Big Ten or whatever last year.
No, I didn't say I didn't doubt. I said I thought that they could be a top 4 team. And they could have been, should have been. Absolutely. Mike DeCourcy joining us. Mike, we're just looking over your projected tournament field and was talking earlier about the number 1 seeds, how I could see a few of them swapping with conference tournaments, Auburn and Baylor with Kentucky and Kansas, potential there. But other than that, not a lot of change up there. Now, Wisconsin, they could hurt themselves with a loss in the Big Ten tournament, I guess, since they're on the bottom of the 2 seed line. But man, Wisconsin, I was just talking, they are such a weak 2 seed. Not that they don't deserve to be there, but I just think that they are the weakest 2 seed. I'm like, golly, and Kevin pointed out, so, well, they just keep getting it done. And I'm like, and then it blows my mind every time when I see them. I'm like, how the hell are they winning those games? But
they know how to win. That's winning is a skill, and in the modern age of basketball, an underrated skill. When power.
Talk to Woody about that. Woody would like to have that conversation with his team.
Absolutely. If you're an Indiana fan, wouldn't you rather be winning 24 games by an average of 6 points, which is literally the regular season Providence just had? Their average margin of victory is under 6 points, and they're 24-4. That's pretty much astounding. It's hard to believe that's even possible. But it gets you doubted, as is the case with Wisconsin. Wisconsin just keeps going on and beating good teams, and people say, yeah, but. Well, I mean, look, everybody's going to lose in the NCAA tournament except for one team. That's 67 out of 68. And 13 out of 14 teams in the Big Ten are going to lose in the Big Ten tournament. That I don't think that, like, what's amazing about that is that Wisconsin will be the one. If I were picking the tournament, I'd say they probably won't win it. So they'll be the one everybody say, see, they weren't that good. But whoever else loses, whether it's Purdue or Illinois, maybe. I mean, one of them is not going to win,
right?
And no one will say, "See, they weren't that good," other than maybe the team's rival. I just find it amazing that winning the game is so secondary now, almost to what's your rating? What's your Ken Pom? And what's your net? That's what people focus on. And
what does Mike DeCourcy have you at?
Yeah, I don't. I don't know if they're saying that or not. Usually what they say is, how could you have us there? What's interesting is that I get very few questions in regards to the brackets I post. Not like, how come you did this? How come you did that? What went into this? It's always just, you're wrong. That's the beauty of it. There's no subtlety about it.
Like close games, I'm just curious because Indiana's 3-6. I mean, is there a coaching aspect to that? You think too? A guy like Greg Gard, is there a strategic or calm, or the fact that when you execute down the stretch, it's a reflection on the coach, or how would you gauge that in terms of close games, or how much of it is just dumb luck? I mean, you take a look at a guy like Matt Painter at Purdue that certainly looks like he knows what he's doing, but is losing on these banked in 3-pointers and such.
Well, I mean, that happens, obviously. Circumstance like what happened up at Wisconsin, that that last shot by Chucky Hepburn was a very fortunate shot, and so too was the shot that Johnny Davis made prior to that they banked in 2 shots in the last 90 seconds or so. But there are elements there are elements of building a team that is confident in those moments. And I don't think it's anything that Matt's done, but other than this is the roster that he constructed. And at the end of games, they don't have a player that you can say, man, I want the ball in his hands. Who is it? Like Jaden Ivey, like I'd want the ball in his hands a lot, but is he going to be the player who in that final moment makes the absolute right choice? Well, that's not consistently been what he's done. I talk a lot about Andre Cabello on Big Ten Network, and I was really thrilled to see how well he played in the first 16 to 18 minutes of the second half. But in the final 2 minutes, it was, he almost gave the game away after he had basically won it for Illinois. He almost gave it back, and they eventually had to take him out. So some of that is the players, the way the player executes, the way the player has built his game, the way, Andre is a high risk player. That's not a problem because most of the time it comes with high reward. But in certain circumstances, you're up 5-6 points with 2 and change left. Unless you're getting a wide open layup, you don't want to shoot the ball in the first 5 to 7 seconds of the shot clock. And what he did in that circumstance was drive the ball down the left side, get stopped. And instead of saying, okay, there's nothing there, pull it out, he tried to execute a left-handed sweep pass across the baseline. I think it was Trent Frazier in the corner. I'm not sure who was the receiver, but it didn't matter because he missed him by like 3 feet anyway. That can't happen. But so I don't know how much is you put it all on coaching. It's an element. But when you build a team like Ed Cooley has at Providence or like Greg has at Wisconsin, all those wins by close margins are not accidental, any more than Gonzaga blowing out most of the West Coast Conference is accidental. That's the nature of the team.
Looking at your prognostication, Indiana on the bubble, which I asked Kevin this earlier, and because my opinion on it keeps changing. I've gone from them having to win 3 games in the Big Ten tournament to definitely down to 2 and potentially 1. If they beat Michigan and play Illinois tight, I because of their KenPom and their net ranking being where it is, I don't know if that would squeeze them up. And it depends on also what other people do. And who is it that Indiana fans really need to be cheering to lose?
Well, first of all, the first thing you want if you are an Indiana fan or a fan of any team that is either on the bubble on the right side of it or out currently, according to myself or Leonardi or Palm or the bracket matrix or however you want to view it, you want all of the strong mid-major to fringe major conference champions to win. You want Davidson to win the A-10. That's a big one because there's a lot of really good teams in the A-10, but probably not a lot of NCAA tournament teams. VCU is close. Bonnies aren't that far away. Richmond isn't that super far away. Dayton kind of had a chance, and then they lost at LaSalle and probably isn't in, but maybe could make it. And so all those teams are probably good enough to at least get in the picture by the end of the week, when they're certainly all good enough to win the Atlantic 10 tournament. Davidson, I believe Davidson's going either way. I'm not 100% convinced of that. Some of that could be if they lose in the A10 tournament, when they lose and to whom. But I think they have an at-large case. So you don't even want them in the conversation. Just, let them win it and keep them out. North Texas, same way. Not a lot of super impressive non-conference wins, but played fairly well then. And in their league, they dominated a really good league. UAB is a very good basketball team. Louisiana Tech has a player in Kenneth Lofton Jr., who was by far the most important player for the USA U19 World Cup Championship team. By far. I mean, he wrecked Zach Edey in the semifinal. He wrecked Victor Wembanyama of France in the final. 6'6", 270, 280-pound low post guy. Doesn't look like somebody who's a great player, but you watch him play and he's terrific. And North Texas prevailed over all those guys. I don't remember exactly how many league games they played, but they were whatever and won, 15-1, 17-1, however many league games they played. North Texas dominated that league. And if they were to lose in the Conference USA Championship game, I think they're an at-large team. So another team that the teams that are on the bubble would want to lose. I think those are the two most important that are out there now. Loyola got in on the weekend on Sunday, and that was a good one for the bubble teams, because I probably wouldn't have thought of Loyola as an at-large team, but some others did. And so there's no debate now. It's over, and no one else in that league is going. So
what about the Mountain West, Mike? Do you see San Diego State, Boise, and Colorado State all getting in, or no? Or
I think all four of them, Wyoming, Colorado State, Boise, and San Diego State, are tournament level teams. If one of those four wins, you're good. Do you want Vegas, which has played very well lately, playing on its home court in this tournament? You don't want them to win. Because that may squeeze out a Wyoming or something, but it may not. So you don't want 5 available to be considered. So again, you have 4 choices in the Mountain West. If one of them hits, and you're a bubble team, you're good. We've seen in the West Coast Conference, no surprise there. Zags are going, St. Mary's is going, San Francisco's probably going as well. BYU, the loss by BYU the other day helps the bubble. Those are the kinds of teams you want out. Oklahoma, this is me talking as a bubble person, not me. Oklahoma, get them out. Virginia, lose early. Texas A&M, let whoever. Those are the teams that you want to lose early in their conference tournaments because
Florida, so one of those two. I think it's Texas A&M and Florida, so one of those two will knock each other out because I think they're both bubble teams. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one of them is going to eliminate the other, and then what you as a bubble fan want is for that team then to be taken out in their next game in whatever the bracket says. I will say my biggest weakness on these couple of days is knowing who's in what side of what team's bracket. There's like 12 of them. I got all this other stuff to worry about, so I never knew who's playing who. I have a vague idea of the Big Ten because we flashed it on our screen during Beyond at least twice on Sunday. So I have a reasonable idea of where everybody's kind of situated. But if you asked me who is the 12 seed, I might not be able to. No, it's Northwestern because that one was said early on Sunday. But one of the later ones, I would have trouble.
Look, the NCAA seeding, Houston with a 5 seems a little low for the season they've had, especially with Iowa also being a 5 seed. But I know they play in different leagues, so I can't compare the AAC. I haven't watched many of those games, but I wonder, is there some more separation than 2 teams between Houston and Iowa, you think?
So are you saying that you think Houston should be higher?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say this. After they lost and badly to Memphis. I'm wondering if they might even fall to a 6. It depends on some other things I'm looking at, and also what they do next weekend or this weekend in terms of what they do in their conference tournament. But they got swept by Memphis.
Which was a big loss because Memphis was not exactly lighting the world on fire.
They have been playing better lately, Jim, and had kind of forced their way into the field, and now they're pretty firm unless they do something silly like losing their quarters. They're pretty.
Has all this come since Penny had the kind of – remember he had that meltdown earlier in the season, but things –
He actually had 2. He actually, I mean, the one was a little bit more. What's interesting is because we didn't have tape on it, and because he didn't drop multiple F-bombs, his conversation with Seth Davis in early January, I think it was, for The Athletic, I thought was more damning in ways than the public tirade was, because he really ripped his seniors, and it was pretty obvious that although his seniors weren't maybe necessarily the most welcoming, it was pretty obvious that the problem was the chemistry between the veterans and at least one of the freshmen, at least one, and that I thought that Penny siding immediately with the younger players was bad for the chemistry of that team. And it didn't produce good results. And then came the public tirade, and that didn't produce good results. And I don't want to be the one who ties these two things together. But let me just say, if you look at their roster now and their rotation now, it is not the same as what it was when Penny went on the tirade. There have been additions, players coming back, and there have been subtractions, players leaving because they were injured. And they are a much more together team now. They're playing much more for one another. If you look at their early games, they have a young man named Tyler Harris, smallish guard. If he were a little bit bigger, he'd probably be a pro. He's not, if you're his size, you got to be like Muggsy Bogues. I mean, you have to be just so much better than. And this kid's just a really good college basketball player who happens to be 5'8", Tyler Harris. If he were 6'1", he'd be a pro. But at 5'8", he is an absolutely all-in team guy who does everything he can to win. You just can't play him 30 minutes because he's too small. That spirit has come to define Memphis more over the last 3-4 weeks than it had for the previous 2.5, 3 months.
We got to take a quick break. Mike DeCourcy, Kevin Brockway with us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We were talking tournament action. Back with it. Brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
An Evansville tradition for more.
Hey, Kevin, did you see
Jim evacuated, huh? What?
Say Jabron Payne reopened his recruitment?
Jabron Payne. Oh.
The 4-star running back.
Oh, the guy from oh, wow. Was that – wait, wasn't that the guy that signed, or was that – I thought he already signed, wasn't he?
Yeah, apparently he asked for his release.
Oh, jeez. The ship is sinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so is, I think Deshaun McCullough is not playing this spring, so that's very telling. I think he's headed to Notre Dame at the end of the year. He's going to want out too.
I just don't understand why he wouldn't just go now, but
yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Oh well, you got to rebuild. You got to restart somewhere, I guess. If
yeah, but everyone's hyping up this great recruiting class, and if they lose Payne and they lose them, that wasn't really that great of a recruiting class,
Yeah, Payne was a big one.
Payne
they haven't lost Omar Cooper or
yeah.
Who's another 4-star guy?
I
guess Dason McCullough's the big one, really.
Dason is the big one, yeah. Mike, are you going to be in Indy for the tournament or no?
Yeah, I have obligations for Fox on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the bracket stuff. So I won't be there Wednesday. I won't be able to make it Thursday because I'm close to all day on Thursday. But Friday, I'm going to come for the afternoon games. I'll watch all the Illinois whoever game, and then the Rutgers whoever game. I'm going to try to see as much as I can, but I'll probably have to leave at halftime. And then I'll be there on the weekend. I'm with BTN on the weekend.
I'm surprised they don't have a studio there at the arena. BTN.
Oh no, they do. I was talking about Fox, Jim.
Oh.
I have Fox bracket stuff around Big East tournament telecasts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday I'm studio for on-site studio for BTN.
Busy.
Yes.
And what was I going to say? Do we want to talk about the Calvin Ridley, the gambling stuff? It's an interesting topic. Yeah, he was suspended for a year.
Oh, the guy that bet on football games. Yeah.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that yesterday. I was like, really? Seriously? I mean, you're making the kind of money they're making.
15
and you
seconds.
want to go do something so idiotic.
It's an addiction.
Door to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat here on this Tuesday, brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar, part of the WOW Network. Go to mywownetwork.com and join the WOW Club. You can get that at any of your app stores. The WOW Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile phone. New signups receive $10 off every time you spend $20. Your birthday, you receive money. Just give you all kinds of stuff in and around. Welcome back, Kevin Brockway and the great Mike DeCourcy with us. Been talking about all kinds of things, mostly tournament related. The Big Ten tournament coming up, obviously starting. What is tomorrow? Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday's the first day. The first 2 games, and then Indiana, the remaining guys, the next day, and then except for the teams that had the double bye, Indiana taking on Michigan, obviously, and Indiana's got a tough road to hoe, man, to make the tournament. Looking at your bracket, they're on the bubble, which I assume that means the first 4 out.
Yes, that's what I have. Before the weekend, remember this, my most recent bracket, and I'm not updating today. They asked me to start tomorrow, so I won't update today. So I don't 100% know where they would fall today. I know they still wouldn't be in. I suspect they would still be my first team out. But obviously, the fact that they are playing one of my last teams in now, or at least one of my last teams in as of Friday, the Michigan win at Ohio State maybe pushed them out of a first 4 game. I'm not sure. It may not have, because, again, some of that is dependent on what others do. Like Memphis was on the 11 line and won, so they're not falling. North Carolina was on the 10 line, and you may be aware that they won over the weekend. Michigan will still be a first 4 team. So I would say that Michigan playing Indiana, really, if Indiana loses that game, it's okay, it's over. And if they win it, then they still have a legit shot because their resume isn't bad.
Their net rankings and their Ken Palms are in the 40s, and that's really giving them a boost, I guess.
Yeah, right? I think one thing to remember is that although that helps, it doesn't hurt in selections, that those rankings, you don't know 100% what anybody in the committee room thinks or how they think, unless they choose to share it. And for the most part, committee members tend to to not do that. They tend to sort of like, he's the chair, she's the chair. They speak for us, and so they don't tell you what they're thinking. What they are going out and watching games. They are aware of the metrics, but just as you have voters now in the AP poll that they don't just look at their records and what they've seen or whatever, and they like factor in like all these different metrics and average them out because they're like trying to look smart or whatever, And I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I've said this before to you guys, but like if you're going to use the metrics, then why don't just say, oh, here's the metric? Like, what's the point of taking your time to do the numbers and average out all these different ones and then say, oh, this is my top 25? It just seems ridiculous to me. Ken tells you what it is, right?
I'm one of those geeks that does that. I votes on the AP poll. I take into account the fact, but
why would you average in the metrics if you already have metrics? I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like if I look at KenPom and so forth, and I look at Ned and everything like that, but you're not. Like, I'm not saying that you consult them. I mean, you should consult them. Yeah, I'm talking about like literally doing like a formula. Yeah, no, I don't do that. No.
I didn't think you would. That's why
I have a question for you.
Do you know someone that does do it that way?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Why? They're already, and this is the point you're making. There's already a formula, so why in the hell is a sports writer creating a mathematical formula that
full of other formulas? Yes, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's preposterous. But I'm not saying
that person shouldn't have a damn vote. That drives me insane. And I'm sure it's somebody that's probably well known.
And it's I think it shows, like, I think the AP's probably happy because it shows a level of zeal rather than vote. So I think that from that standpoint, they're probably happy with that. But I think that you could have people on the committee that do that. You don't know, or you could have them that what the standard, I might have said this before. When you go into the mock selection process that they used to do, you get to meet some of the committee members, and there was one or two there were one or two every year that you'd meet that would say 3 things that they would go by. Who'd you play? Where'd you play? How'd you do? That's the standard, and that's how it should be. Judge what a team has accomplished, not necessarily what their own net ranking or their own Sagarin or KenPom or whatever. Can you look at that to maybe break a tie or something like that? Sure, but I don't think that there's no formula that's perfect.
No, if there were a perfect, if you're comparing teams that play in the Big Ten versus teams that play in the AC versus the WCC or something, they're completely different metrics. I mean, you have 1 or 2 good teams versus 9.
Yeah, I think that it makes a difference, certainly, and that's what those things try to average out for. And I have great respect for, especially the stats that Ken Pomeroy does on offensive, defensive efficiency, the way teams play, tempo, percentage of 3-pointers that constitutes an offense, all that stuff. I think it's $20 a year for Ken's site if you want the whole access. It is the best $20 I spend all year. I 100%. Here's the story. Sunday night I was at BTN, and there was no way for me to get out to get dinner because we had wall-to-wall games and wall-to-wall shows. So I wanted to order from the Chipotle app, and I forgot to change the setting from my hotel to the studio. So I sent $20 worth of Chipotle to the hotel where I was not. So I blew $20 on food that I didn't eat, and I also spent $20 on the best college basketball stat site in America. So that's how great it is. That you get all that Ken gives you for the same price of what I blew because I pushed the wrong button. So, but at the same time, I don't think that one should look at that as the be all and end all of, well, they're the 25th team, so they must be the 25th best team. Look, Providence is not, at 24-4, the 35th best or whatever they are today college basketball team, that's ludicrous. Now they may be the 35th most likely to win a particular game based on point spread, et cetera, but they're not the 35th best team. That's not a way of looking things. There's no defensible way of saying that.
I'm looking at Joe Lenardi's bracket. Ironically, he's last 4 buys. He's got Michigan as the last. His last 4 in, Rutgers is the second to last, and the first 4 out is Indiana. So that looks like Memphis or Michigan is could take a loss in the tournament. You don't know with that one loss.
I'm not going to commit to that for this reason. One, it moves Indiana closer to Michigan. 2, it gives Indiana the opportunity to go out and then win more bigger games.
And they only played twice this year. So, and if they were to beat them on a neutral floor, I don't know because Michigan
it wouldn't hurt.
Indiana
I mean, they're close enough that it could be a tiebreaker. And then, like I said, then Indiana gets to go out and play Illinois. And Penn State played Illinois close last week. Iowa played Illinois close last week. Indiana could. I mean, we know they can. So
I know they can play them close because they played Purdue close. And I'll be honest with you, that was a shocker to me. I absolutely expected Indiana to get annihilated at Mackey, but just because it was going to be Mackey and Purdue was going to be pissed, the fans, all that stuff, and that didn't happen. Indiana was able to again give Purdue all they wanted, and that was in an environment that Indiana has not played well in harsh environments. And man, they gave them a game, I guess I should say.
Hey, they had a last shot to win it, right? I mean, or tie if they had the opportunity, execution wise. I know if I'm Michigan, I'm playing as if that game means in or out. And honestly, if they win it, it's in. They're definitely in. And if they lose, and if IU loses, they're definitely out. So if I'm Michigan, I'm playing that game like I absolutely have to have it.
In the second half, in Purdue was, and Indiana was in that game with about 5 minutes to go. So that tells you something. Mike, I'm curious about conference record. 9-11. Does that hurt, or is that a perception thing with regards to that? You see very few teams with losing conference records that make it as that large team.
Yeah, you see few, but that's only because the window for those teams is pretty small. I mean, the team that is putting up that kind of record is shooting for one of the first 4 spots or shooting for one of the 11s. So the window isn't big. And so, of course, there aren't going to be a lot mathematically, but it doesn't keep you out. It's not a factor in the selection room. It's barely on the team sheet. And actually, it's not on the team sheet. You have to do the calculation because it gives your non-conference record, oddly enough, on the team sheet, but it doesn't give your conference record. So you have to do the subtraction. And so if you really want to, you can do that. Or you can whip out your phone, because it's not like they confiscate everybody's phone. You can whip out your phone and say, oh, what was Indiana in the Big Ten? If you want to make it a factor, you're free to make it. Again, you can make the decision as a committee person on whether you like a team's nickname or color of uniform. You can do that. No one can stop you because every ballot is secret. The discussions are not, but every ballot is. So you can vote whatever you want to vote. And again, you can do that vote on whatever basis you want. But if you look at Iowa State, for instance, Iowa State is 7-11 in the Big 12 conference, but they had an overwhelming non-conference. I mean, their non-conference record, if you just did the Ken Palm on that or the net on that, it'd be one of the highest in the country. Or just, separated out non-conference quad ones and that sort of thing. They had a really strong. So 7-11 isn't going to affect them getting in, and it won't even affect them getting a decent seed. I had Iowa State last bracket as an 8. So I don't know where they'll go from there in Kansas City. Obviously depends on how they perform. But they have the ability because of that to get up to a 7. And we're talking about a team that was 4 games under 500 in their league.
A couple things one quick note here someone just sent me regarding Providence. 6 out of the 8 players listed on their roster on the box score in their last game versus Villanova were between 22 and 24 years old.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps. One of the interesting things about them as well is that on that team, they have 2 top 100 players in their 8-man rotation. 2 in the entire thing. They won 24 games with 2 top 100 players, and the second of those, Nate Watson, was for 24/7 Sports, literally the number 100 player. So they were that close to having 1 top 100 player in their rotation. They have 4 players. Half their rotation was unranked by 24/7 Sports. And to complete that thought, 24/7 Sports ranks 400 players a year. 400. And half their rotation couldn't make that cut, and still they're 24-4. I think that's amazing. Yes, they're old, but that's not uncommon at all with the COVID year. A lot of kids took the COVID year. I mean, my goodness, Jalen Coleman-Lands at Kansas. He's he's right behind me in line to get Social Security, for goodness sakes.
No, the dude Bohannon at Iowa.
Yes, absolutely.
He went through his
another.
I think he went through his 4th senior day festivities. I mean, he's got that's amazing. Kevin, you were talking about looking at the Big Ten record, but I think that those people also consider the fact that the Big Ten is sending potentially 9 teams to the NCAA. So when you're playing in the Big Ten Conference, you're playing NCAA tournament teams almost every game. So that's why I don't think a 9-11 record is going to hurt anyone at all, because you look at who they're near and close by, and it's the Michigans, it's the other teams, especially when, and it's, God, this is what's so frustrating for Indiana fans. You said earlier that I at the start of the season, I said I thought that Indiana could be a top 4 team, and they damn sure could have. There are 4. You can just take 4 out of their 11 losses and turn that around, and that jacks them up. They just could not get those close wins. They gave up wins that they shouldn't have. The Northwestern win, the Penn State win. I'll be honest with you, both the Wisconsin losses, but that's what it could have, should have. But you could easily pick out 4 games.
Wins there too, Jim. They got some close wins. I mean, they got Purdue.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying they could have easily been up
in the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? That's, you are what you are. You are what your record says you are.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Kevin. But I think Jim's point is that if you did a better job, you could have been Wisconsin or Providence.
Yeah,
whether it's the players, the coaches, whoever. If you'd done better, you could have been one of those teams.
But you didn't do
it. And they were this close to it. And that's what's so difficult. If you were this far away, well, you get it. But when you're that stinking close, you're like, gosh, dang it, guys. If you just don't screw up that last 1 minute in the game that they did probably 5 times, that's what's maddening, because you're like, you can touch it. But next year's team is probably going to be a completely different look, Mike. I would be shocked if there are not 6 new faces on this roster. Minimum.
Yeah, the other thing, and Kevin, you know this as well as anybody, the other thing, and this is not within one's control necessarily, but you lose Rob Finney for the heart of conference play. And we saw Rob's importance again. I think, Jim, if they'd gone up in the same state as they played the second 2 weeks in February, say, and gone into that Mackey game, they probably would have gotten blown out. But even though Rob didn't have a great start from the field in the Purdue game, I think he still made a difference in the second half in them being competitive. And Trey Galloway's absence in the last couple of weeks has had an impact as well. And, injuries are part of the game. Yeah, but the teams that get injured are the ones that wind up on the wrong side of whatever. That's the reality. Injuries are part of the game, sure, but Gonzaga doesn't have those. They don't. Arizona doesn't have them. That's the difference. Kentucky has them, or they would maybe be in that company on the one line. They had multiple injuries every time they played a big game on the road. So it is part of the game, but it's a part of the game that punishes particular teams, and others that don't have those injuries, it doesn't.
Absolutely.
And I think too, you got to develop guys 1 through 12. That's the importance of that as well. Is that you have to have guys that step up. If a Trey Galloway goes down, and Anthony Leal has to be ready. If a Rob Phillips goes down, a Christian Lander has to be ready.
Yes.
And unfortunately,
Indiana's just not in that position right now. They're not in that position from a personnel standpoint. And the first year of the
but the big question is why aren't they, or why hasn't Leal and Lander, why didn't they develop from freshmen to sophomores when you're supposed to make your biggest
they didn't have them the first year. They had them the second year. So, and you're looking at I'm assuming two completely different systems, whatever the system is now. But why? I don't know. I'm not in practice. Now, Galloway's hurt, and Galloway had been an integral part and had become an integral part of the team. Leal is a good question, especially for a team that desperately needs shooters. I don't know if it's his defense that lacks. I'm not in practice. Mike, I don't know if you have a take on it, but
I think Anthony Kevin has a good point, though. I mean, there are some teams, if they had Finney and Galloway go down, would have which walk-on goes in now? And they do have two guys that were, promising prospects out of high school. Obviously, Christian more so than Anthony, but neither of them was able to come in and really fill almost any of the gap that those players left. Now, Christian's not going to come in and fill in for Rob's experience and knowledge and intelligence and all that, because Christian hasn't played that much. But he's got more talent than Rob does. I mean, he's got a quicker first step. He can get to the rim faster and all that. And he can step back into a three with great quickness. I don't know if necessarily great accuracy, but he's got that move. But all that didn't add up to much. Whether not seeing practice, only seeing glimpses in games. You don't know whether or not they should have made a bigger impact, but they could have.
I bring this comment up only because I've had it a lot, and Indiana really went hard on the strength and conditioning in the advent of the Archie Miller era. But it also seems that during that time and since, the injuries have been more frequent to Indiana players. Injuries that take them out seem to have been more frequent, which in itself is a little odd when you look at it in a broad stroke. I know there's a lot more to that, but I've had that question a lot.
Yeah, it's really impossible to say. The Steelers this year had 17 17 groin injuries. It felt like 17. There were at least a half dozen, and probably more. And so,
which is what Trey Galloway's dealing with.
Yeah. Did they do something wrong in their prep that was universal among those players and led to that, or was it just a weird coincidence? Really hard to say. We see guys in football and basketball dismissed as injury prone because they might fall. They might have somebody fall in football, have somebody fall on the back of their leg and twist their Achilles or their knee or whatever. Or we might have a basketball player go in for a layup and somebody steps under him and he lands on it and sprains his ankle, and all of a sudden it's his fault for being injury prone. It's really hard to say. I'm sure internally, when those things crop up, I'm sure that the Steelers said, "Okay, did we do something? Hey, Joe, did you do something different or whatever?" But other than that, they might internally say, "Yeah, we probably shouldn't have done this," or they'd say, "No, we did the same thing we've always done and never had this problem before, but this year we do." Sometimes it's just luck when it comes to injuries. And only the people inside those buildings know if it's luck or not. And if it was something they erred on, then they're going to quietly fix it, and then you won't see it again, and you'll never know what the reasoning was.
Who wins the Big Ten tournament?
Oh man.
Yeah,
This
is a great. This is a great. And this is this the most. Is this a year that you can't? Is there another year that you can think of where the parity was I'm like, I don't know who's going to win it.
I will tell you that the year that I have come upon that recalled, and Kevin, this is right up your alley, man. 2014. Florida in 2014 was the best team in the country. And there was no chance they were going to win the NCAA tournament in my mind because they had really, really good college basketball players like Patrick Young with no pro future at all. I mean, Patrick, this is 2014. This is 8 years later. He's not only not in the NBA, he's working on SEC Network last time I looked.
Which he was going to do, by the way. I could tell then. Like, I knew he was going to do. I knew that was his future career path. I actually told him back then if you need a reference for it because he was just so good and so engaging. Yeah, you knew. Some players you could tell that they were going to be destined for that. He was a broadcast major.
Yeah, he's terrific, and he was a really good college basketball player, but he just wasn't a pro, and he was their best guy. And Scotty Wilbekin, I think, is still playing in Spain or something like that. He was a really good college player, but he wasn't an NBA guy. And so I just knew they weren't going to do it. And what do we wind up with in the championship game? We wind up with an underseeded Kentucky team that had botched 75% of the regular season, but showed what they were capable of in the SEC tournament, making the final and losing to that terrific Florida team by a margin an Indiana fan would be too familiar with. And they put them in an 8-9 game. They won that. Then they went out and it played in one of the best NCAA tournament games ever against Wichita, which was an undefeated one. And Kentucky goes all the way to the final. And then UConn, which won the championship, comes out of a 7 seed and ends up beating Michigan State in the Elite Eight. And that's what we ended up with in the championship game, a 7 and a 9 or a 7 and I think it was a 7 and a 9. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen this year. But I am saying that if it did happen this year, I wouldn't be surprised because every team at the top, Gonzaga to Auburn to Kentucky to Duke, whoever, they're all very good teams.
I've got 12
you can even call them great relative to their league if you want, but they're all flawed.
I think there are 12 teams that can win the national championship this year.
That seems like a reasonable number.
And it doesn't mean that I think that 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th team are better than those other 8. That just didn't always have a lot to do with it. Sometimes you got to get lucky, the draw, this, that, but those last 4 teams, they're capable of beating those other guys on a one-night basis. And sometimes that's all it takes is to win this game on this night. The next game may be easier for you, but I think the most likely it's obviously going to come out of the first 8, but those other 4 teams, they're all capable of it. And I think that's what's going to make this tournament maybe potentially one of the funnest yet.
Let me ask you both this. Can Purdue win a national championship?
No. They don't play defense worth a crap. And you do not win national championships not playing defense.
I'm going to be a little bit more analytical than that. But the last time I checked, they were 103 in defensive efficiency. And you can't win it at that level. You could maybe make the Final Four if you got great matchups and played your absolute best. But those last 2 games, somebody's getting in your way. And if you
those last 2 games, those teams are very good offensively usually. So that's not, that would be a bad thing.
If Miller Kopp makes a better pass to Trey Jackson-Davis during overtime. I mean, they had the hole, they had the open. You talk about Purdue's defense. I mean, they gave Indiana a ton of chances in that game.
Yes.
And that's why Indiana should not have been close to beating a Purdue team and West Lafayette. And damn, they could. They would, if they hadn't been so inept, they probably could have won that game. But Mike, I know this is the busiest time of year for you. You've got the bracket going. You've got the sporting news, your writing going, and you've got your studio duties with Fox and BTN, which, of course, the Big Ten tournament starts on Wednesday. So Man, where are you going to be? Are you Chicago, back and forth, Indy to Chicago?
No, I'll be in Indy all week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I will be doing multiple bracket hits that won't just discuss the Big East, but are wrapped around the Big East tournament telecasts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then on Saturday and Sunday, I'll be on-site studio. It's studio panel, whatever it is. The desk at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I'll be on the desk there on Saturday and Sunday, pregame shows, postgame, etc. And I will, because of the Fox stuff, I won't be able to get to the first 2 days of the Big Ten tournament, but I am planning to come down for either Illinois, Michigan, or Illinois, Indiana. We'll have to see how that goes. But if I didn't have an early Big East hit, I would definitely be courtside on Thursday for that Michigan, Indiana game. I think it's going to be tremendous.
Looking forward to it, and looking forward to next time we get to talk to you, my friend. Cannot thank you enough. It's always a blast.
It was fun for me too, guys. Absolutely.
Mike DeCourcy with the Sporting News, Fox and BTN. Make sure you give him a follow, be a subscriber. I am. Great coverage. And we're back with more Indiana Sports Feed, brought to you by our good friends at Feast Market and Cellar. Great wines and cheeses, all part of the WOW Network, where you can get the WOW card. Go to your app store and sign up. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda. That was fun.
You all could do a quick thing about Calvin Ridley here before we take another quick break for Chronic Hoosier.
We should also hit on that Jabron Payne news too.
Jabron Payne, but yes.
We'll talk about that with Chronic.
Yeah, there you go.
What social media account did he post it on?
Who?
His Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter. Yeah, and I saw it quoted from Dustin DePierre and Zach Osterman.
When did he post that this morning?
About probably almost an hour ago.
Unbelievable. I guess he had a good relationship with McCullough, and that's why. Yeah,
I'm sure he'll be off to Notre Dame.
And Deshaun McCullough's not playing this spring, so he's protecting himself for when he goes to Notre Dame in the summer.
Well,
why would he say he's committed, though? I mean, I know it's just speak and they do all that stuff, but.
Well, because maybe sometimes when you say that, you believe that. That's how you feel. And then sometimes
you change your mind. Yeah. You change your mind, yeah.
I love students.
But also, by getting into the spring, at worst, he only has a half that he has to sit out at Notre Dame if he transfers. Well, you do have the one-time transfer, though. So that doesn't affect him at all. You know what I mean, Vern? Who does Calvin Ridley play for? The Falcons?
Yep.
What an idiot. I want to know what kind of money we're talking about. I mean, if he's betting big, I still don't. It's just stupid. That is the dumbest effing thing in the history of the world to do. Go through somebody. Don't you have a friend? That is idiots.
In a few years, we'll probably be talking about Super Bowl players that are getting released because they were betting on their own game or throwing the game or for millions of dollars. I can see that happening for sure. People are greedy enough and don't care about actually winning a ring, especially for the guys that don't actually play in those games. They're just a part of those teams. Start deflating some footballs again. All right, here we go.
Max Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. I hope you're having a great Tuesday. If you're listening to us, you are. Kevin Brockway's here from CNHI Papers. We had a great time with Mike DeCourcy. Great conversations about the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten tournament coming up here shortly. Chronic Hoosier coming up here in a little bit. How about Calvin Ridley, a member of the Atlanta Falcons, caught betting on the Falcons? Now, Forrest says Ridley should get a lifetime suspension just like Pete Rose did. How does he not? Now, if you're betting, if that is the rule and that's the rule, how is it just not? Boom. I mean, now Pete Rose's deal was a lot deeper. He bet on a crap ton of games. It could have been over more than a season as well. He was betting on just all kinds of stuff, which was idiotic. But they weren't making the money back then either. But his was just a degenerative disease. Chronic's with us. You can bring him on anytime. I don't know about Ridley.
Also tried to obstruct the investigation a little bit too. Whereas I think Ridley, they just caught him and he just did it. But let's not forget Paul Hornung and Alex Karras late in the 1960s.
We're talking about Chronic, to get Chronic up to speed. We're talking about the sports betting. Calvin Ridley caught here by the Falcons. You just mentioned the other guys. Kentucky had a point shaving scandal back in the 50s where those national championship team members could not play in the Olympics. Oh yeah, it's happened. But nothing like Pete Rose. That's still haunts it. He'll never get into the Hall of Fame as of the way things stand right now. And not that Ridley's a Hall of Famer, but what should his punishment be? Is just the rest of the season, really?
It's a wild one, man. And I think part of it is we're at this weird confluence of time where gambling is really, really sweeping over the whole nation as far as where it's becoming legal, the proliferation of the apps and that industry's placement in media. It's seemingly everywhere now. It's funny. So many
most teams have partners. How many teams have betting partners?
Yes. No.
Did we lose him?
For the second. Yeah, we did. But great. He's back. Yeah, what a great point. How many teams have betting partners? That's a crazy aspect of it right there.
Yeah, no question. I agree. And I think a lot of people are pointing that up, kind of the hypocrisy of it, the fact that, and maybe that's why it's only a 1-year suspension too, the fact that, you don't ban someone for life because of the fact that the teams are in bed with some of these websites. And we've even seen fantasy football and everything else, DraftKings and all these apps and so forth, where, you sit him out for a year, you let him learn his lesson. But when you're a player, you just can't get involved with that. I agree. And it just, it can spiral down and affect the integrity of the game. One bookmaker, it's a lot more savvy now than it was back then. But, you get in debt with these websites. Maybe these websites cut a deal. You never know. To tell them, hey, look, we can eliminate your debt if you just drop a few balls on a Sunday. That stuff can happen behind the scenes. You just don't want it messing with the integrity of the competition of the games.
Well, and that's the key point in all of this, though, because now the conversation is swiftly turned to, okay, so what about the Dolphins? What happens when ownership is incentivizing losing? For a league that, the shield is all protecting, and it's the only thing that matters at that echelon. What's good for the goose has to be good for the gander. In this instance, if you want to say, one player betting on a game that he wasn't a part of, that he wasn't playing in, now he's going to lose a season. You've got an owner who's putting a reward up $100,000 per loss. Like you just cannot square away protecting the integrity on the player side while giving owners a free pass to tank the teams or to manipulate the outcomes however they feel like best suits their needs. It's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out and how the Players Association pushes back on that. Because I wouldn't be surprised if the proliferation of gambling among players is probably far, far more widespread than what anybody's willing to acknowledge at this point. Now, it could be guys are smart enough not to put the account in their own name. Like, how hard is it to put the gambling account in your wife or your girlfriend or a friend's name for purposes of making a couple of plays here and there? But it'll be real interesting to see where that comes out, because for a generation where we really haven't had to deal with this a lot, pretty much since Pete Rose, the biggest high-profile gambling case, now all of a sudden it's come full circle again, but in a completely different time from where we've previously had these conversations.
Now we've got plenty of other things to talk about, but more importantly, the tournaments that are coming up. First of which, the Big Ten tournament. Most recently, we just saw the IU women had a great run. They were trying to become the first team on the women's side to win 4 games in 4 days. We're not able to do that, but they finished runner-up to Iowa in the Big Ten tournament. They'll end up with a nice seed in the NCAA tournament and probably host a round or 2 at Assembly Hall. And then, Chronic, we have to look at Indiana is fighting to get into the NCAA tournament. If they don't, and they're in NIT, we're looking at the potential of them being able to host, but those two problems converging with the men and the women being able to host, because there is some crossover there.
Yeah, I'd seen yesterday, Zach had outlined that IU was very much interested in hosting both men's and women's, assuming that the women will receive a top 16 seed and give them the opportunity to host. It's
in and out, baby. In and out. John Boy.
Go ahead and take your next break real quick while we're waiting on Chronic. If you want.
All right. Well, we got it. We'll come back, and I've got more Chronic right after this. Brought to you by our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, located at Patterson and Rogers, right here in Bloomington. Great food, Southern food with comfort food with a Southern twist. Back with more Kevin Brockway and Chronic Hoosier right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington or a cutter.
Yeah, normally when it drops me, I lose StreamYard. I haven't got booted out of StreamYard yet.
You lost your profile picture this time, though.
Well, I don't know what I see the split screen like we're still live here. Normally that's what happens is it dumps me and I got to jump back in the room. I haven't lost the room yet.
You're fine the way that you are right now. If you don't want to change anything, just odd. Sometimes you drop out that way.
Normally it's, I think, because our internet sucks at work, which is why often I'll just go to the cell tower and just shut off my Wi-Fi. Hey, Jim, circling back, man, I on that thing with Mo,
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what the move is for that. Like, I know a bunch of people in the restaurant industry that could like host something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've got that covered. I've got hotels covered now.
Is it like what's he trying to do? What's his product?
Well, the worst thing is the timing of this, because everything is so freaking fluid. And that's what I said, we don't really know anything until Sunday.
Right.
And that's what's holding everything up. Once that happens, bam, the time can be decided, and then everything else can just fall into place.
Is he trying to do a camp? Like, how's he trying to raise funds?
No. I've got T-shirts and sweatshirts being made for him.
Okay.
That he's going to do like a signing appearance.
maybe at Assembly Hall, then of course in and around town at some of these restaurants, and probably have him just sit in and do some shows, and people can come out and meet. I don't know if he has any photos or anything, but basically doing appearances. And then I'm going to try to get some places to have him come in to do an appearance.
It would be killers. Bring a photog and a portable printer and just have them like spin them up and sign them right there.
Great idea. Photog with fans.
You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's going to do it from the cell phone for free. Well, hell, here we got a guy here's a lighting rig. Here's a professional photo. Print it off.
Well, you know what?
Who's going to sign it? Customize it. Bam.
Hey, they can take it if they want with their phone.
Yeah.
But you can also have one in printer and sign it. That's a great idea, brother. That may be the best idea yet.
All right, here we go.
So I make the big bucks, brother. Come on now.
I know. That's why I reached out to you. You're one of the only
I just didn't know
people
what
I
he
reached
was
out
percent
to.
more in-store credit toward a new jewelry purchase. You can redesign it and turn your unwanted jewelry into something you will wear and treasure for years to come. Brinker's Jewelers provides free evaluations, top prices, and immediate payment in a relaxed atmosphere. Visit our showroom today at the corner of Green River Road and the Lloyd Expressway. This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat on this Tuesday. Don't forget about our friends at Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Dr. Steve Green, Bob Knight's first recruit, and Brian Evans in partnership there. If you have trouble sleeping, snoring, keeping your partner awake, all it takes is this little device right here, man. Go see them. It works. They're in Indianapolis. Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Chronic Hoosiers with us. A lot going on this week, man. A lot to be determined. Bubbles, busting bubbles. Indiana's on a bubble. You look here and there. They're on Mike DeCourcy's bubble. I look at Joe Lenardi. He's got them. He has Indiana as his first team out, which is actually a good sign to me, because I'm thinking if they beat Michigan, all it takes is one of those last four in teams to lose, and they swap. Now, that's Joe Lenardi and not the NCAA, but he's pretty close. SMU, Wyoming, Xavier, Rutgers is one of those teams. I don't see them getting dropped in place for Indiana, Chronic, because Rutgers just beat Indiana at home.
Yeah, they certainly didn't do themselves any favors with dropping 7 out of their final 9 contests. At this point, there's so many balls up in the air. You have to assume that Indiana is only going to be safe with multiple victories in Indianapolis. I think it would be really risky to put the house on one win against Michigan and expect that to be enough. While the overall profile may stack up favorably against some of the bubble teams, as we've already seen this week and pretty much since the month started, there's bid thieves everywhere right now. It's one of those where Indiana had their future and had their fate in their hands. They fumbled it, and they've got one last crack at it up in Indianapolis here this weekend. Yeah, no, for real though. And this is one of those situations where even assuming they beat Michigan, you're still looking at a very negative close to the season, which just opens the door for recency bias among the selection committee. I would not feel comfortable assuming one win's going to be enough. And I would also condition all that on Joe Lenardi's reputation as not maybe the most accurate bracketologist. He certainly gets the most airtime because of his platform at ESPN. But when you look at the bracket matrix and where Indiana is currently projecting right now, they're only present in 21 or 11.67 of all the bracketologists. I think they're up to like 118 now that are comprised in the bracket matrix. So they are certainly not where you want to be at this point at the close of the regular season. But they continue to control their own destiny here. There's still games on the schedule. I think 2 wins should be more than sufficient for them. But it's going to be a really tough poll because as you look at their path in the Big Ten tournament, they have not beat Michigan this year. They have not beat Illinois. And I don't know that I want to see Rutgers in the semifinals either, quite frankly.
Kevin, every time we hear Indiana has their destiny in their hands, we've heard that a lot this year, but every time they've dropped it. Kevin.
Yeah,
no
question. I think no, and I think true that like Illinois and Michigan, as I alluded to earlier, I mean those are 2 of your most lopsided losses in the Big Ten this season. Certainly the bracket didn't do them any favors. You would have liked to have seen Wisconsin beat Nebraska, and you'd have Wisconsin that second game perhaps with Johnny Davis ailing or out because I guess he's had that knee issue on that flagrant foul that would have served Indiana much better. But I think that hey, it is a new season though, and maybe you come out and maybe you finally have that game that you shoot lights out, which they haven't had. It seems like in forever, but maybe they have one of those 10 for 20 3-point. I guess they did against Minnesota, right, where they had that 10 for 20 3-point game. Maybe they have another one of those in them. And Indy didn't Parker Stewart had his one really good shooting day this season against Notre Dame at India at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. If you remember back in the day, Armand Franklin used to play well there. Maybe you have that kind of day where somebody surprises you, but you're going to need that and some resiliency and some toughness in order to pull out that win against Michigan and you advance.
Just saw a tweet that there are tickets for $3 to the ACC tournament and $4 to the SEC tournament in Tampa.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Where's the ACC tournament? Is it in Greensboro or
no? You know what? Probably Charlotte, maybe. I don't know. It's in Brooklyn.
Oh wow, it's in okay. So that's
They're at the Nets.
Barclays Center.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now see, that doesn't make sense to me. If you're not in Chronic, if you're not going to play in Madison Square Garden, why does the ACC feel compelled to go to New York when, I mean, to me, they should be playing somewhere in the middle of the coast. Of course, what do I know?
Same reason the Big Ten saw fit to bring Rutgers into it. They're just chasing the TVs, and at the end of the day, the thing about New York, no matter what conference you're hosting there, every conference has a huge alumni representation in New York City in that area, just because if
you don't, you're pretty sad.
No, seriously though. I mean, even the MEAC has got a strong alumni contingency there. It highlights the folly of the way they're chasing clout and viewership, and everybody's trying to stake a flag in somebody else's yard and conquer the territory. But there's $5 tickets available for the Big Ten tournament I saw yesterday. Getting the door price is still pretty cheap. It's certainly one thing that I don't think stacks up real well for Indiana, for a team that has that's needed the confines of home to often play some of their best ball. Although I felt like they put up a good fight in Mackey, but nevertheless, for a gym that would presumably give them a good home court advantage, that 11:30 time slot on a Thursday morning. Don't get me wrong, I fully expect to see a lot of loud and proud Hoosiers in there, but it's certainly not going to be the turnout you would expect if it were a primetime game, or at least something in the afternoon session.
Not just that, though. I mean, as an athlete, playing at 11:30 in the morning is just, your body's not used to that. And I don't care if you get up at 7 that morning. Your body, I just don't know that your body is used to playing a competitive game at 11:30 in the morning. Your body is used to, hell, they practice at, I think, 2:30 in the afternoon every day, whatever time their practice is. The games are always in the evening, and you're conditioned to that. It's different and difficult to play at 11:30. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the surprising parts about the tournament bracket is when you look at the way those time out, the number 1 seed line takes the early slot every day as the tournament progresses. And since the 8-9 is going to be what feeds into Illinois after that, I don't know if that plays in Indiana's advantage or not. At the end of the day, you can throw it all out the window, though. Indiana just has to go out and play the best basketball of the season right now, because otherwise they're they are going to fall short of the goal that I think they themselves accepted, and most of us outside the program felt like we were rightly holding them to, and that was making the NCAA tournament. So fascinated to see how it plays out, fascinated to see what happens. Last time we were staring at an NIT berth, the program politely declined at least hosting it, and proceeded to go down to Georgia and get embarrassed by Josh Pastner's Tech. So it's fascinating that here we are a couple years later, and the program is now once again gladly signaling they'd like to host it. They'd like to continue playing basketball, and they'd like to see just how much further this team can grow and develop. What really is going to be interesting is how the experiences of the next 2 weeks impact the future for Indiana. Because assuming that they don't get 2 wins, assuming they don't get an NCAA bid, what type of taste did this leave in everybody's mouth? How do they grow from it and learn from it? How do they divine inspiration from it to make themselves better this time next year, so we're not having these winner or die tournaments or games, and just all the appurtenant grief that they have to listen to. It's just really, really unfortunate for a team that was very, very solidly in just a month and some change ago to be put in this position right now. But it's not necessarily what life gives you, it's how you respond to it. And there's a whole lot left to learn about these Hoosiers and what type of response they can muster given the circumstances now.
16-5 at the end of January, and you lose 7-9. Also, I just quickly browse this, Jim. 2-1 in noon tips. They beat Merrimack, they beat Minnesota, and they lost to Illinois in their last noon tip. So you're curious about the early times and them being conditioned. I guess they do have a winning record in those really early tips, but you got to consider the competition too.
Changing gears a little bit, Chronic, on the football side of things for Indiana, a pretty big loss in running back Jabron Payne requesting his release from Indiana. 2022 4-star running back Jabron Payne has requested that release. He said, I have formally requested him and granted my release from my national letter of intent with Indiana. He tweeted out, as a person and athlete, I've thrived and prosper off of communication, genuine relationships. With that said, I am looking to explore my options to ensure I am making the best decision for my future. Some of the teams that had offered him previously: Florida, Notre Dame, Alabama, Northwestern, Penn State, Michigan State, Iowa, Cincinnati, and more. Indiana landed him, but of course, the big note there, Notre Dame, one of those schools, and of course, Indiana's running backs coach now off to Notre Dame, which would be no surprise for us to see him transfer to Notre Dame or to commit to Notre Dame.
Yeah, we'll see if they've got room for him, but it certainly would set up. It's not uncommon to see commits follow the coach that recruited him there. But just yet another departure in what's seemingly been a one-way street out of the north end zone here this offseason. I think the Grant Hurd wide receivers coach has left since we last spoke last week as well. So
this is all based coming off of this recruiting class, Chronic, that everything was with all the negative last year. The one positive was this great recruiting class that was coming in, and man, it has been holes shot through it.
Yeah, which is not. I mean, I guess that's to be expected when you lose your OC, your DC, your associate head coach, the position coaches that have departed. As the kid mentioned in his note, this is a business of relationships, and these teams work long and hard and invest a ton of resources in building those relationships. So it's certainly not uncommon anywhere to see those commitments change when those relationships are affected in that manner. It's perhaps surprising Indiana hasn't had more defections, considering how much of the staff, how many of those relationships have now been broken. But at the end of the day, the net effect is it's just one more obstacle that this team's going to have to overcome here going into next season. And you got to wonder, you talk about responses. How are the guys that remain going to respond when you've seen so many adults in the room pack up and leave, when you see a lot of kids who had, pledged to be your brothers, renege on those commitments, or at least, I don't want to frame it too negatively. It's certainly their right. And I support that. It's just, that's the price you pay when you have that level of instability in the program, is it's going to be really difficult to keep people stuck to your program.
Yeah, LEO is it's to love each other is harder and harder to sell when you don't have people that are staying together. It's sounding more and more and looking more and more like leave the exit open, and unfortunately, hopefully they can overcome that next year. Man, are you going to make it out to any of the tournament games coming up?
Unfortunately, I am predisposed in the afternoons of both Thursday and Friday. So in the event that they can muster a Saturday appearance, I'm going to be able to make it up there, but I am definitely watching from the workplace the next couple of mornings. It's on a personal level, the most disappointing part about those time slots is it takes that off the table for me. But so is life. At the end of the day, I'm glad they've still got an opportunity. There's some conferences where you have to qualify for the conference championship. It's not an open invitational like the Big Ten has. But it certainly didn't do Indiana any favors in the draw, both in times as well as the teams in their way. But at the end of the day, I think that's probably just as well. They're going to have to excise some demons on a lot of different levels if they want to hear their name called on Selection Sunday. And beating, as Kevin said, two teams that beat you as soundly as anybody on your schedule this year would be a great way to prove that you do belong in there.
Absolutely, man. It is always a blast to have you on. I can't tell you much. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks for having me. Always enjoy it. Hopefully we got some good stuff to talk about next week, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be basketball. And at this time of the year, with no baseball on the calendar going forward, got to have something to talk about, got to have some sports. So enjoying it while we got it. And hopefully the men and the women can make some noise. And at the worst case, we still got more games ahead of us at Assembly Hall one way or another. So that's always a good thing come March.
Absolutely. Hey, but don't forget, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, #1 for a reason. You get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com. Chronic Hoosier, can't thank you enough, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
Be well, guys. Take care.
You bet. Also, don't forget our friends at Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Hey, we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat. Finish it out right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Boy, how'd you like that? That was cool, huh?
It was cool until I realized it was a blurry image.
Oh, God. YouTube, man. It's YouTube. $5 in the Big Ten. There you go.
I'll probably cut out at 10:25 just because I got to hop on Woodson's at 10:30. So.
Oh yeah, I got to get that scheduled up and ready to go. I've got to, where is, I gotta get that set up right now and ready to go. Tuesday availability. Michigan preview topic. That's Mike Woodson. Open that.
Mikey Dubs. What if people start calling him that for the W and then he gets wins?
Sounds like the
go ahead and say it.
Office is the reception. Okay. No one at the reception desk. All right, daggone it. There we go. Connecting. Join with computer audio. I am connected. All right. I'm ready to go. Oh, damn it. I didn't want that. I want that. And move you here. And you there. And we are red-eyed to go. Yeah, I'm going to get right off.
It's fun. It means you'll get
I'm
out
gonna
on
be-
time today.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, boy. Kevin, you have an article out? Hey, what happened to those headphones I gave you? Why don't you use them? Because you sound like crap.
That's all right. John said I sounded okay.
You sound good on occasion. It just fades in and out. It's weird.
You're using a microphone off of your laptop. And anytime you lean back or move over, it just changes. These headphones, it's the same, and it's a lot better sound.
All right.
And you can hear everybody else so much better.
All right, here we go.
Full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on this station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. Kevin Brockway here. We finish out another great day. Mike DeCourcy was with us, chronic Hoosier. It's tournament time. All kinds of stuff going on. Major League Baseball still in trouble, Kevin. Right now it's not that big a deal because we've got things to keep us busy. But this NCAA college basketball month of March is like a volcano, man. It erupts like boom, and then it's over at the start of April, and we're left with usually the start of Major League Baseball, but not going to be there for us this year. It looks like.
Well, apparently there's another deadline day today that they're talking about where they might be able to come to agreement today. But if not, second week will be lost. That's John Heyman reporting. Also, some other news. No surprise. We've been talking about this for a week, but AGC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporting UGA, Tom Crean to part ways after basketball season. So it sounds like that's in the works after a 6-22 year. And
dude, I've been saying that for months. This is I think I said it before the season started. He lost so many people transferred out. It's like you could tell. It's like, man, everybody wants out of there. Where does he go from here? I mean, I know that he could get another job at a lesser school. Because we saw Tubby Smith do that. It's exactly what Tubby Smith did. He just went down, 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 down.
Remember Herb Sednick and NC State and Arizona State. He was at Santa Clara last night, and they almost beat St. Mary's. So they always end up somewhere, right? You can always.
Well, out at is Fisher still at San Diego State? He's probably retired now, right?
No, he retired. Yeah, so his top assistant, is
went from Michigan, but went from Michigan out there. It's but that's where we are. But at least we've got the tournament to embrace for the next couple of weeks. Betting, watching. You talk about the craziest time in Las Vegas. It's like the first and second weekends of the NCAA tournament. I was out there once for the second weekend, and it is just a madhouse. Now you don't have to have that as much now with other places like the state of Indiana having gambling. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. I hadn't thought about that. Oh my goodness. I hadn't bet on anything in a while, but I will be betting on the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. How about your buddy Scott Davenport too? Bellarmine tonight. They're playing at Freedom Hall for the
championship
against Jacksonville, and they're my Jerome pick. They're doing pretty well, and Loyola Chicago I had, and Murray State obviously took care of business in the Ohio Valley and Evansville over the weekend. So you had that, but obviously some disappointments. I had Cleveland State, they went down. I had Towson, they went down. I had Samford, they went down. Oral Roberts, Texas State, all don't even make the finals. So I've got 5 goose eggs on my Jerome, which is not good to start out. But we need Bellarmine and Vermont and Wagner and Colgate and Gonzaga, who I have over St. Mary's tonight to pull it out.
I think Pizza X in Bloomington has a tournament bracket. I'm going to participate in it. Did I send that to you? I think I did.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Yes. So we'll get you into that. We'll see how we do along the way, and we'll talk about it.
Would you get free pizzas or no, or for life or something if you win? Or
well, I don't know. It's just maybe just for the fun of it. But I'm sure that they'll do something nice for us. But yeah, looking forward to that starting. Of course, it'd be a lot more fun, even for us as reporters, if Indiana was in it. And so I would definitely would prefer that. They're going to play in the postseason either way. That's one thing that is a certain. Indiana's going to play in the postseason for the first time in 6 years.
Well, no, they played in 2019. They played in the NIT.
Well, I meant that's right. The NCAA is the 6-year thing, but. Does the NIT count? I don't think the NIT counts as postseason for most Indiana fans.
No. But you said the first time they'll play in the postseason. I just
I know. I forgot about that.
My first day here was that NIT where they lost to Wichita State. Greg Marshall.
Oh my God! And his crazy wife.
Yep.
Oh my God! If you all don't remember, Greg Marshall's wife didn't she just yell nonstop? Had this chirp.
Yeah, and she apparently had a few beverages in the stands too, allegedly.
Always, it was. And of course, Marshall has been let go. He had his own problems.
Player B scandal, very similar to Bob Knight. Yeah.
Well, at least Bob Knight's wife wasn't crazy in the stands. How do they? I don't know how they even dealt with that. How do you not just say, "Dude, get her under control"? I mean, if you're the AD, I'm gonna say, I'm like, hey, get her under control.
Yeah.
But they never did. So, what are your projections for the Big Ten tournament?
I'm picking Purdue, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, even though
really
having some close games, I just think that I think the bracket sets well for, especially considering that. Wisconsin, if Johnny Davis isn't 100% nailing, I think they'll get to the final game, and I think it'll be them in Illinois, and I think they'll find a way to win it because they match up well.
I disagree, but I don't have to make my pick until tomorrow because the game that doesn't start. And actually, Wednesday games don't even count because those teams will not make much of a difference. So I will make my decision by Wednesday morning who is going to win the Big Ten tournament. I'll make my pick, and we'll see. The NCAA tournament, now that's going to be a fun one to pick. So,
no question. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the seedings all play out, whether who gets where. Baylor could get interesting as well. But we're about to get Mike Woodson here, so I'm going to cut out.
All right, buddy. Good one. As always, look forward to talking to you again next week. Look forward to it. Make sure you give Kevin a follow at CNHI Papers or if you're in your area. If not, just give him a follow on Twitter. But always a fun day as it was today with Mike DeCourcy, Kevin Brockway, and Chronic Hoosier as always. So, but most importantly, thanks to you guys. I know we have a little more time left to fill before we get out. Let's see. I'm looking over here for something. I was gonna.
Hey, I have something. I don't know. I had to step out for just a moment a second ago, but you all were talking about brackets. Did you mention anything about doing an Indiana Sports Beat bracket challenge? Because I think
no, but it's a great idea, and we can do that. It's a great idea, and we'll do that. How about that?
Yeah, we'll start talking about that later on, and I'll put that together. But I thought that's what you were talking about, and if not, which you weren't, then that's how the idea came about. So.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to cut out about a minute sooner today so I can jump on to Mike Woodson press conference. And I hope you guys have a great day. Cannot tell you much. We appreciate you as always and look forward to having you back tomorrow, Wednesday. Always another good show. Looking forward to that. And we'll be back as we'll be previewing the Big Ten tournament and much more. Thanks to everybody, to Mike DeCourcy, Kevin Brockway, and Chronic Hoosier, and John, the producer. Most importantly, thank you guys. We're back tomorrow with more here at Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by the great folks at Endeavor Hospitality. Make sure you go sign up for your WOW card, and that's at any of your app stores. You can get that easily. So do that for me. It'll make us look good. Appreciate you. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports